Is it visible now? My presentation? Hello? Can somebody speak?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My presentation is visible?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay, thank you. Now let's start. Sorry for this 1 minute delay.
If possible, you can make it a full screen, sir.
I will make just now.
Fine. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So this is development of assessment plan in outcome-based education environment. So what I plan to discuss in this 2 hours session is what is basically outcome-based education, what is an assessment plan, and what is different in the assessment plan in OBE environment. So let us see. So what is outcome-based education? Outcome-based education basically is a learner-centered approach. Unlike the approach which we have been following, I think we are still following. What we are doing is we are following a teacher-centered approach, where the teacher comes into class, speaks what he wants, and goes out after 45 or 50 minutes of the class. He is not bothered about whether the students have learned anything or not, whether they have studied anything or not. So what we do is you see, as far as teacher is concerned, he has been asked that you have to take 3 hours of lecture and 2 hours of practical class in a week. You have to give midterms assessment test. You have to give some quiz, and you have to conduct the final examination. So he does, I am doing everything. That is my duty. That is a teacher center. Focus is on the teacher, what the teacher is doing. Whereas in outcome-based education, the focus is the student. It is not what teacher is teaching. It is what the student is learning. What the student is learning, that is defined before you start. What a student will learn in 4 years of mechanical engineering degree, that is decided before he enters the college. He knows what he has to learn. The teacher knows what the student has to be made to learn. The student knows on what he will be tested, on what he will be assessed and evaluated. The paper setter, the examiner knows on what he has to evaluate the student. So in the outcome-based education, it is a clear focus on the learner. You see, you decide what the student will be able to do when he passes out from your college. Those who know the outcome-based education, that we call it as program outcomes. Once you have decided that I want that my student, when they go out of this college after 4 years of studying with me, what I expect them to do after 4 years. That is called, we write the learning outcomes or program learning outcomes, or we call it as program outcomes, which are for UG programs. NBA, National Board of Accreditation, has given us 12 outcomes for UG programs. Once we know what is to be taught, once we document what we will teach to the students, then organize everything in the educational system around what is essential for the students to be able to do successfully at the end of their learning experience. Organize everything. Organizing what? Organize the curriculum. Organize the teaching learning process. Organize the assessment and evaluation process, so that the student learn We make the student learn, we help the student learn by making the curricula required to meet the program outcomes, make the teaching learning process to make them learn, and to see whether they have learned or not, what we do is we evaluate and test. We evaluate and assess and evaluate the students. Right? When we start, that means we know what is to be done, what my students will be able to do after 4 years. And the students also know what they are expected to do. And the teacher also knows. This means starting with a clear picture of what is important for our students to be able to do. Students know what they are required to be doing after 4 years. Then organizing curriculum. Make your curriculum accordingly. Change, design your instruction, design your teaching learning process accordingly so that the students learn. It is not necessary that I will first teach them theory, then only do the practical. I can take them to the workshop and show the things first, then I can teach the theory. Maybe it may work better. Then assessment to make sure this learning ultimately happens. This is the definition of OBE given by Spady long back in 1994. We are talking about this. In fact, whole world is talking about outcome-based education now. Now, these are the 3 steps. Just see: curriculum, teaching learning process, assessment, and 4th step is feedback. Feedback is what? We have made the curriculum, we have made the teaching learning process, we have conducted the assessment, but the students have not learned. After the assessment, we have found that the students have not come to the level to which we wanted them to come. So we analyze the results and take feedback and go back to curriculum. Whether there is something wrong in the curriculum, there is something wrong in the teaching learning process, or assessment system is not rigid and is not well defined, and make changes. So that is what we call it as outcome-based education. So outcome-based education operates on what do you want the students to learn. That means it has to be decided first what my student will be able to do. We are all engineers. What we do is we have seen that the curriculum of diploma and degree programs is almost same. Books followed are same. Right? But diploma is a lower level qualification. That means the depth to which the students will go in each topic will be different. So what do you want the students to learn? We have to decide whether we want the students to do some design projects. In diploma, we say we will not do that. In degree, we will do that. And if you see, I have talked about POs. This window is not going. Anyway, why do we want them to learn it? Why do we want them, the students, to learn what we have planned? Because we want them to perform, because there is a requirement from the industry that the students should be able to do such things when they pass out from the college. And how do you best help students to learn it? What should you do it? How much practical, how much project work, how much theory, what we should do it, what content? And how will you know what they have learned? What is the type of the evaluation system you have? So what OBE does? Defines the program outcomes clearly. You see, if you see this, we have written that what the students will, what do you want the students to learn, and why do you want them to learn it? That means we have to write what they should do. That is called program outcomes. They have to be very clear. Fortunately, if you go for NBA, if you visit the NBA website, the program outcomes for UG programs are clearly mentioned by NBA itself on their website. Provides learning activities to achieve the POs. That means provide the learning activities based on the curriculum. Curriculum is designed, teaching learning methods are discussed and finalized by the faculty so that we are able to give the required outcomes to the students. Assessment of the outcomes by a well-defined assessment system. We need a well-defined. Somebody in his speech said, we need a valid and fair outcome system. Then continuous improvement based on the attainment. We plan something, whether we have achieved it or not. For that, we have to do continuous improvement based on the attainment of outcomes. So there are three components basically in the outcome. One is the curriculum, second is the teaching learning process, third is the assessment and evaluation. Of course, fourth is the feedback. And there's lot many other things associated with the POs, program outcomes, COs, what we call. We'll come to it. And this window go. So if you have many of you may be knowing it that in outcome education, the hierarchy is that you start from the vision and mission of the institute or the department, right? Then what you have is you have program educational objectives. What is the program educational objectives? Program educational objectives are where you want to see your students after 3-4 years, 4-5 years of passing out from your institute. Program outcomes, we call it as POs. POs are basically what my student will be able to do immediately after passing out from the program. You see, just there's a difference between program outcomes and PEOs. PEOs are after 4-5 years of passing out, and POs are immediately when they go out of your institute. Then course outcomes. Course outcomes are when they have gone through one course. Course means a subject. When they have gone through a subject, what are their capabilities? Indirectly, what we are doing, we are asking why are you teaching, why I am teaching this subject to the students? What will happen if this is not taught? If I don't teach them thermal engineering, what will happen? They will not know the working of an IC engine, let us say. They will not know the cycle in the thermal cycle in the IC engine. Or if I don't teach them workshop technology, they will not know how a lathe works. They will not know how to work on the lathe. So if you see, there are two sets of arrows in this figure. One is going up and second is going down. It says that when we have to define these vision, mission and of the institute, program PEOs, POs and COs, we go from top to bottom. That means we first define the vision and mission of the institute. From that you derive the program educational objectives. From that you derive the POs, program outcomes. From that you derive the course outcomes. But when we have to measure the attainment of these, what you do is you first calculate the attainment of course outcomes. From that you calculate the attainment of program outcomes. From that attainment of PEOs, and from that attainment of vision and mission. Anyway, this you may have already discussed somewhere. The lower two are called short-term outcomes and upper two are called long-term outcomes. Vision is certainly a long-term outcome where you want your institute to go in the next, let's say, 10 years. Program educational objectives are 4-5 years, but program outcomes are immediately when the student passes out from your institute, and course outcomes are when the student completes one subject in one semester. So these two are the immediate short-term outcomes, and the upper two are the long-term outcomes. Now, why are we talking about OBE? What is different? As I have already told you, the curriculum will be different. How do we write the curriculum? That is, there will be difference. Teaching learning approach has to be different. Assessment and evaluation has to be different. Because what we are doing is, instead of a teacher-centered system, we have now come to a student-centered system, or what we call it as a learner-based, learner-focused approach. And there is a continuous quality improvement in this system. How curriculum is designed? Curriculum design is based on the POs. It is a bottom-up approach. That means first you decide what are the outcomes my student has to be possessing when he passes out, program outcomes. You write the program outcomes first, that he should be able to design a mechanical engineering system. For doing that, what are the subjects I have to teach? Should I teach him engineering materials? Should I teach him how to design what are the properties of the engineering materials? What are the machines and mechanisms? Do I teach him theory of machines? Do I teach him mathematics? Do I teach him something of finite element analysis? So curriculum is based on the program outcomes. That means you first write what he will be able to do. It is not that we are teaching something. Okay, we started teaching from the first semester, and then see after 4 years he will be able to do something. We try to reduce the things, drive the things. But here it is different. It is first we decide what he will be able to do after 4 years of learning in the institute. Then to meet that requirement, what we do is we write the curriculum. What he will be able to, what he should read, what theory he should read, what practical part he should read. Active involvement of the stakeholders. It is not in isolation that we are designing the curriculum. Who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are, you as teachers are stakeholders. Students whose future is at stake, they are the stakeholders. Parents whose wards are with you. Management whose reputation is with them. Government whose economy is depending on the engineers you are producing. Employers, they are the stakeholders. Alumni of your college, they are the stakeholders. And whatever you can list down. The content, curriculum, what industry says is that what we want you are not teaching, and what you are teaching we don't need. So the content is not, basically it is not revised periodically. You keep on teaching the same content which was taught probably 10 years back. So the new innovations, new content, that is not, new development is not included into the course. And for the affiliated colleges, those who are affiliated to a university, they don't have a way out. They cannot themselves advise. So they have to do what the university says. Industry involvement in the curriculum design and curriculum implementation, evaluation is not there. In curriculum, in OBE, it will be there. The content will be dynamic. That means something may be left to the teacher itself. 80% of the curriculum will be defined. Then the rest of the things you leave it to the teacher. You see, there are two things. One is the curriculum. Second is the syllabus. Curriculum is a bigger thing. You can design the curriculum that, okay, I want this. I want that The students should be taught about the power drives. Now, what are the power drives? That detailing can be done by the teacher. Industry involvement in offering the programs, in delivery of the programs. And for each course, for each subject, course outcomes are defined. The practical tasks are well defined, not like what we have is. The practical is the most neglected part in engineering I have seen. And the evaluation of practical is still worse. Teaching learning process. The teaching learning process in OBE, the teachers, autonomy to the teachers in conduct of classes and assessment. That means we will have empowered and responsible teachers. Why I have written empowered and responsible? Empowered means that you will have the authority. At the same time, you will show responsibility. Right? You are responsible for the results. You can be punished if you don't do it responsibly. Flexible teaching learning process. As I said, we don't have to go by the very strict, rigid lines. I can take the student to the practical class, show them how a IC engine works, and then I can teach them in the theory. I can have, as your principal said, n number of pedagogical approaches, teaching learning approaches, which I can embed in my classrooms. I can have a ICT based lectures. I can give simulations in the classroom itself. Focus on development of knowledge, skill, and attitude. It is not basically rote-based learning. It is focus on knowledge, skill, and attitude. Teachers' role more as team member, leaders rather than individual. That means he will not be a teacher of the previous years. He will be a team member. He can work with these students. He can be a team leader, but the student has to be more responsible here. The teacher will be a facilitator here. Continuous record keeping and mentoring the students. Record keeping will be there so that you can correlate, you can build your opinion, build your evaluation on the records which you have, and the students will be needing to be mentored at various stages. Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is one thing which all engineering teachers should know. Unfortunately, we are not taught at any place. But I'm very sure during this week you will have a discussion on Bloom's taxonomy. The way the timetable is written, I can see that Bloom's taxonomy. So I'm not telling you what Bloom's taxonomy is. Teachers. To ensure that the required outcomes are attained, the teachers will have to be empowered teachers with autonomy in delivery of courses and assessment, variety of teaching learning approaches, formative criteria referenced assessment. I'll come to it. That is what is criteria referenced assessment afterwards. Work more as team member, continuous record keeping, and students will be proactive students. They will do assignments seriously. They will work on innovative projects. So that this was just an introduction to what outcome-based education is. Now just coming to the topic on assessment and evaluation. Assessment and evaluation, we have been using these two words interchangeably. We have been using these two words interchangeably, but these are actually different. These are actually different. Assessment is the systematic process of documenting and using empirical data to measure knowledge, skills, and attitudes and benefits. That means assessment is basically data collection, marking the answer sheets, assessing the performance of the students without taking a decision. You just assess how they have done. Whereas evaluation is giving the grades, right? Now in assessment also you have some idea about the performance, you make some decisions, but it is not for grading purposes, it may be for something else, how much the students have learned. Evaluation focuses on grades and might reflect classroom components other than course content. You know, sometimes we say, okay, what is the attendance? You give some points for some credit for attendance also. So what we have is assessment is basically continuous, but the evaluation is terminal, judgmental. That means you give a judgment that he is passing or failing, he is good, he is bad. But both require some criteria and use measures and are evidence driven. That means they have some criteria, take some measurements, and they need some evidence to work upon. This box is not right. Anyway, assessment plan. What is the assessment plan? Assessment plan is a document that outlines student learning outcomes or department goals to be assessed during the academic year. That means it will outline what outcomes we will assess. It should clearly write. It should clearly indicate. Direct and indirect assessment methods used to demonstrate the attainment of each outcome. You see, when we talk about assessment, it is both direct and indirect. For very simple terms, what we are doing in the classroom, in the institute, that is direct assessment. But when we take some feedback from, let's say, employers, how my students are doing, what are their performance, or what are their performance in the industry, that is indirect assessment, right? Their behavior. So the assessment plan should include what is the direct and indirect assessment methods used to demonstrate the attainment of each outcome. All outcomes may have different methods for demonstrating the attainment. A single method cannot be used. What we are doing at present is we are using a single method. Brief explanation of assessment method include the source of data. What data we will need. Indication of which outcomes or goals are to be addressed by each method. You see, we have a large number of methods of assessing. Now, which method we will use for assessing the outcomes? As I said, let's say there are 12 outcomes for a UG program. So we'll come to the assessment methods also. When do we collect this data? We say that, okay, we will conduct 2 internal assessment, continuous assessment tests. That date is fixed, right? Then at the same time, we say that, okay, the teacher will give the result in 1 week after the completion of the internal assessment test. Who will be collecting the data or reviewing the data? The teacher or the teacher who is not taking the class? Now, what an assessment plan should answer? How will the learning outcome be established? First is, how will you establish the learning outcomes? What are the outcomes? What would an ideal student know, be able to do, or value? That means we are talking about program outcomes. For us, it is very simple that NBA gives us the program outcomes. They have given us that there will be 12 program outcomes for UG programs. Those who have gone through it, good. Those who have not gone through it, they should go through the NBA website. What measures will be used with each outcome? How will we measure? Will there be only direct assessment, or there will be indirect assessment also? How will be the results reviewed and decision made? What will we do with that data? We have measured the data. How will we do it? We will do it. Do we put them in different categories? Good students, medium students, bad students, fail students, so that we can take a decision. What are the timelines for implementing the plan? When do we want to? At what stages, what steps we want to implement the plan? What technical systems may be needed? Do we need a computer program for that? Do we need some labs for that, for testing the outcomes? That has to be spelled. What will we do? How do we test this attainment of the outcomes? An effective assessment plan will start with the department mission statement. You know what is mission statement? What is vision statement? Vision is basically what a department, what an institute want to become in a long term. That is the wish list actually. Whereas mission is how you want to achieve that. How will you achieve that? I want that my mechanical engineering department will be sort of department in the, let's say, institute itself. Let's first compete in the institute itself. What we will do? I will provide a conducive environment for students to learn. I will provide state-of-the-art labs in the department. Right? I can write that type of vision statements. So the plan will be built upon the program outcomes. It has to be built upon the program outcomes because finally we have to attain the program outcomes. Involves more than one type of measure. It is not that only I will set a question paper and take the test. No, I can have more measures. How is the performance in the class? How does he perform in the class quizzes? Can he give a seminar, a good seminar? Be developed and carried out by the program faculty. Nobody else will do it for you. You are the best person. This person, the teacher who is teaching the subject, he will develop the plan. Right? Address the real questions and concerns faculty may have about student learning in their program. You see, you have been teaching the subject or the program in the mechanical engineering department. What are the issues which are there in the performance of the students, in the outcome of the student? Those issues should be addressed. Be used to improve student learning, not merely satisfying a requirement. It is not that somebody has asked us that we will conduct a internal assessment test, so we will conduct 2 tests. No, it should serve the purpose of improving the system, right? So be used to improve student learning, not merely satisfying. That means we have to see that you see, especially the in semester, within the semester, this continuous assessment, what do we call it as? This is like making a dal in your house. What do you do? When you say you are making, let's say, some vegetable, sambar, you are making sambar in your house. What you do is you put some salt, you put some masalas, and see the taste. If it is not up to the mark, you add something more. Same thing we have to do in our assessment, continuous assessment. If the students, we give them a test, we give them some activity. So what do you do? After that, you analyze what is the effectiveness of the teaching learning process I am doing. What are the strong areas of the students now? What are the weak areas of the students where I can improve? So it is not just passing, failing, giving the marks to the students and my responsibility is over. No, it is not like this. So these are some formal definitions. Assessment involves the incorporation in process measurement data. It makes sense of data collected on students' performance. Basically, assessment is a lower part of the evaluation is the end part, right? Assessment involves the interpretation of measurement data. You see, there is another term called measurement. Measurement is you measure and leave. Assessment makes some sense that okay, you are not doing good. My students are not doing in this aspect. So let me do something more to this. Whereas in evaluation, it is basically a grading exercise. Assessment is more important actually than evaluation. Assessment is you analyze the results, student learning levels, and take action to improve that. But evaluation is just grading. That this such and such fellow is A class, such and such is B class, B plus grade, A plus grade. In assessment, we try to see the learning levels. We want that everybody should be top level. Whereas in evaluation, what you do is, and sometimes it is a norm-based assessment. Let's say everybody in the class, the highest marks are 20. So what you do is, in norm-based system, what you do is you say, okay, we will assume, we will rationalize it, and we will make that 20 is equal to 100, and you put a normal distribution and say, okay, so many students will pass. Although the student has attained only 20 marks, but they are being equated to as if they have got 100% marks. So if you compare assessment and evaluation, assessment is collecting, reviewing, and using data for purpose of improvement in current performance. Whereas evaluation is act of passing judgment on the basis of set of standards. We have given these standards, and we are, of course, I'm talking about scaling up or scaling down also, but it is like we used to have an absolute system earlier that okay, if somebody is getting less than 40% marks, we will fail him. If you take the nature of the test assessment, it is diagnostic. Assessment is that you want to diagnose what is good and what is bad. Whereas evaluation is judgmental. You say, okay, this is pass, this is fair. Assessment provides feedback on performance and areas of improvement. Whereas evaluation is final, that somebody has achieved this objective, they have attained the outcome, he knows how to design a product, the other person doesn't know how to design a product. Assessment is formative. Formative is continuous. Summative is, evaluation is summative. Summative is what? Summative is end semester, end of the year. Now, a very important aspect, assessment is process oriented. We try to see the results of the assessment and want to make the changes in the process. It is basically we are trying to evaluate the process, whether my students are benefiting from this process. What are the good points? What are the bad points? Whereas evaluation says this student is good, this is bad. So it is a product. Our product is student. Processes are, let's say, whole teaching, learning, lab, theory classes. Feedback based on the observation and positive and negative points, based on the level of quality as per set standard. You see, when we talk about assessment, we say these are the positive things, these are the negative things, and we can make changes. We can make changes. We can make improvements. Whereas when we talk about evaluation, it is based on the quality as per standard. We want that 60% should be there. Only then we will give the first class. If it is not there, we don't bother. We say, okay, you are now in the passing with second class. Now, assessment evaluation, basically, it can be at the institute level, it can be at the program level, it can be at the state level, it can be at the group level, right? But what we are talking is, we are talking about the assessment at the program level. Program means after 4 years, and course level. Course level means after your students are passing one subject. So we are talking about two types of assessment. One is program level, second is process level. Now, what is this course level? Course level is the lowest level, isn't it? From which we try to drive the, program level, in department level, institute level, all these assessment. We say this institute is very good. Now that institute is very good based on what? Because the departments are good. Now department is good because their programs are good. The programs are good because their subject outcomes, course outcomes are good. So we have to start from the course level. The course is basically subject. Now for each subject, desired outcomes are defined for each course. Now I will not go into how we define the course outcomes. And along with that, assessment method is also identified for each CO. Let's say I write one CO in C programming, that the student, after going through this program on programming with C, in C language, the student will be able to do, he will be able to write a simple program for solving a problem. Now, how do I test it? Do I give him an examination question, or I will make him sit on the computer and write a program? I have to identify. So I will say, when I write that CO, I will say that, okay, in the class itself, I will tell him to write a program. The student knows that he will have to write a program in the sitting on the system. And if I can evaluate it, well and good. If he has written that program, that means that course outcome CO has been achieved, that has been attained. Attainment level decided for each CO. That means, let's say you want to give him a complicated program for writing the for a complicated problem for writing a program. What do? Then you divide it into parts, right? If he does this much, I give him this. That means, let's say he's level 1. You had decided level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the highest. If you can do it, let's say he writes a very, very lengthy program. I say, okay, he could have optimized it. So I give him level 4. But he has optimized it. The program is very good. Then I say the level is 5. Assessment rubric can be used for assessment of each course. What I said, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can define for each CO, that is called rubrics, right? Course attainment assessment based on the attainment of COs. That means you have written 4 or 5 COs. Based on the attainment of those 4 or 5 COs, you calculate the attainment of that course. Let's say I am teaching C programming. So I had 5 programs, 5 COs. So the average attainment level in that is, let's say 0.8, 80%. So that becomes the attainment of the course. If sometimes I want to say that, okay, this is the internal assessment, this is the my internal, then I want to add to this end-term examination attainment also. So I can give weightage. Let's say I will say 50% to external examination and 50% to the internal examination. So combined assessment will be the attainment. The attainment will be the assessment of the course attainment. Now, when we have to talk about program level, program outcomes and program specific outcomes are defined and known to teachers and students. Even COs are defined and known to the teachers and the students. And these program outcomes are based on the program level. This assessment is based on the attainment of the program level outcome. Let's say I said there are 12 outcomes which NBA has defined for us for UG program. Now we will calculate the attainment for each PO. Then the combined attainment for the sum of the attainment of all the POs may be weighted sum. It is not that simply plus plus plus. it may be weighted sum of the attainment. That becomes the attainment of the program. Attainment of POs are evaluated based on the course outcome attainment. That means first we calculate the course CO attainment, then based on that we calculate the PO attainment. Those who have gone through NBA, they will know it. Now, what are the POs? Just for information, it represents the skills, attitudes, knowledge, skills, and attitudes the student should have at the end of the 4 years of engineering programs. Course outcomes are the resultant knowledge, skills the students acquires at the end of the course. POs are defined by NBA, as I said, and COs are defined by the subject teachers. While defining COs, assessment methods for assessing the attainment of the CO is also decided. Now, what are the various methods of assessing the COs? As I said, you can have a descriptive question, what we call it as essay type question, or you can have short answer questions, 2-line questions. You can have MCQs, multiple level questions. You can have matching type, match this and this. You can have completion type, that you write something like fill in the blanks or completing the some important aspects. Quiz you can have. You can give a problem solving, that okay, you are teaching AutoCAD, instead of asking what is the line type you will use for such and such thing, what is the command you will use for drawing a circle, tell him to draw a circle. Performance, you ask them to perform some experiment, to do simulation of some phenomena. So that can be that you can list against your CO, that for this CO I will use this performance criteria, this assessment criteria. Can I have some questions if you want? Let me see. There are no questions actually. So if somebody wants a question, please do write in the chat box. You can write your question in the chat box. Okay, if there are no questions. Now, what is new in the feature, this outcome-based approach to assessment? You see, in outcome-based education, what we want that the student should learn, right? The student should learn. So that means the emphasis in outcome-based assessment and evaluation is on the end product. What is end product? End product is my student, that he should learn. That means whatever assessment, what is the questions you make, that should emphasize on the learning of the student. You see, there is no question, no use of asking a question who invented computer. So what my feeling is that what we should do is we should write questions which are application oriented. They should go towards application. They should motivate the student to think. They should stimulate the student. They should lead, but they should not guide. They should not tell what is to be written, but they should tell that this can be the method. So emphasis is an output or the end product. The outcome-based assessment emphasizes the assessment of student outputs or end products as opposed to lecture input. goals. We are not asking that I had taught you this subject and I said this. No, I want what the student is able to do after doing this. Right? Can he design a jig? Because I taught him jigs and fix. Can he do the FEA analysis? Because I taught him finite element analysis on a, let's say, software. Knowledge or content of course is no longer the principal focus, but instead the focus is on the application of that knowledge, whether he is able to apply that knowledge, right? I have told him the difference between AC and DC, electricity. Does he know? What are the advantages? What are the applications? Can he choose one application? I have told him that there are different type of motors. There are electrical motors, there are hydraulic motors. Can he select one? So knowledge or content of course is no longer the principal focus, but instead the focus is on the application of that knowledge and the demonstration of the acquired skills and values within specific contexts. He should be able to demonstrate that he has acquired those knowledge, skills, and attitude. These outcomes have to be explicit to ensure that the learners clearly understand what is being assessed and what is to be achieved. That means there should be no vagueness in the outcomes. What you want when you are writing an assessment plan, you are making a question paper. There should not be vagueness. It should be very explicit. It should be probably have a single answer. Of course, when we go for higher level learning skills, higher order learning skills, we try them not to have questions which have a clear answer. That is called complex problem solving. That should come in the let's say fourth year. Outcome based assessment is criteria based as opposed to the norm based. What is this? Outcome based is criteria based. Criteria is what? We have defined the program outcomes that my student will be able to do such things when he comes out of the institute after 4 years of study. So we have to test the students as per the criteria fixed, as per the POs, program outcomes. Norm based is what we have been doing, that okay, 70% A plus, 80% A plus plus, 60% first class. That is norm based. We are going away from the norm based, because norm based is basically you are trying to compare the students. Whereas in the criteria based, when I say that the student should be able to jump 6 feet, everybody has to be able to jump 6 feet. Some people may jump 7 feet, 8 feet, 9 feet. But the basic criteria is that everybody should be able to have a jump of 6 feet, so that when I say that all my students are empowered, all my students have the capability to jump 6 feet. All my students can use AutoCAD. Some may use software also. Outcome-based assessment is criteria reference. We have been using normal curve. I just discussed with you that we have been using normal curve, distribution curve. That okay, even if the highest score is 20 marks in a particular subject, we will equate it to 100% and try to fix some standard deviation and try to make the result accordingly. There has been a complete shift away from the tendency to use a normal curve as the basis for making decisions about individual performance. In contrast to normal reference testing, which is designed for the purpose of comparing students with one another, criteria reference assessment is a form of assessment in which judgments are made about learners by measuring their work against set criteria that are independent of the work of other learners. That means if somebody else had jumped 6 feet, I say, okay, no problem. but you should also jump. It is not that if somebody else has jumped 5 feet, you should also jump 5 feet. I say, okay, no. If somebody has jumped 5 feet, he is unfit. So you are to be compared, the new student has to be compared with 6 feet only. Even if grades are given, learners' achievements are graded in terms of whether they have satisfied the criteria for assessment. You see, as I said, somebody may jump 7 feet, 8 feet, 9 feet, but we say that, okay, he has just completed the criteria of 6 feet. That means he can do the, let's say, in filing in a job shop, or he can repair a two-wheeler engine. Whereas you have another student who can probably work on a four-wheel engine, a car engine. But minimum attainment is that, okay, he can repair a the requirement was two-wheeler engine. But okay, people have worked, they are sharper than this, so that means they get, if the two-wheeler engine is grade 1, level 1, then you go and increase the grade level. That means somebody has reached the grade 5. Criteria are specified terms of criteria are specified in terms of the outcome set for a course. By putting in time and effort at the beginning of the course, that means all this has to be done at the beginning of the course, reflecting on and specifying criteria and communicating those clearly to the students. One is in a better position to facilitate learning by giving learners feedback on to the extent to which they have or have not met these criteria. That means what we do is we say, okay, I am teaching you air conditioning subject. What I want is that you should be able to decide the tonnage of AC, of what tonnage air conditioner you will require for a given situation. Now, many people say, sir, you are telling the question to the student that I will ask you this question. You may be right. I am telling the question to the student. But at the same time, I am not telling to the what is the environment. I will change the environment every time. So if you can do that, that means the required skill has been attained. The required outcome has been attained. I told a student, let us say, to make a design auto rickshaw. I worked with him. I told that I will ask him a question on design of an auto rickshaw. But when I asked him a question, I tried to tell him, when I taught him, I told him that it depends on the type of road. I told him how to design a auto rickshaw in Chandigarh. But when I give him a problem, I give him a problem that you have to design a auto rickshaw in Shimla, where it is a hilly area. If he can do that, that means he has attained that outcome. Outcome-based assessment focuses on using frequent and varied assessment techniques to guide students toward achieving the outcome set for a course. That means you can. It is not that I will have a test only twice, two tests in a semester. No, I can have two. But frequently, I can have small tests, and the test will be different. Sometimes I'll ask them to write the answer. Second time, I will tell them that you work on this centrifugal pump, see what is wrong with this. So that the students learn. Now that innovative things, how do we test the students? That will come from the teachers who are handling the subject. In contrast to continual assessment, in which one merely assesses repeatedly, continuous assessment makes use of a variety of assessment practices during a course or module with the intention of understanding where the learner is. Usually it is not only testing. It is not only testing whether the student knows or not. No, it has to take a decision what else needs to be done so that he is able to do that. One thing more, a particular type of criteria or question evaluation tool may be good for a particular individual. The other students may need different type of tool. That also we have to decide. Feedback from assessment enable the lecturer involved to provide as much guidance to the learner as possible. The feedback guide learner on their strengths. You see, it tells the teacher what is extra is required. But at the same time, it tells the students also what are the strengths, what they have learned, what is strong points they have, and what are the weaknesses where they need to work. They will need to put in more work. It may not be formal assessment. It may be informal you are doing, because the idea is not to pass or fail the students. The idea is that the student should learn. Its intention is to inform the students on the success of their learning so far. That means we want to tell the student that you have reached this level and you have to work more to go at a higher level. Outcome-based assessment is used for formative and summative purposes. Formative, I said, it is a continuous assessment, and summative is and semester. You see, many times we go for accreditation. People say, sir, summative end term examination is not in our hand. University sets the question paper, and the question paper may not be in the format in which you want or I want, but the system will change. There is a when you have to set a question paper, it says that the question paper, the questions you set has to be valid. Valid means if I set a question paper or you set a question paper, it should ask for the same skills from the student, right? It should be asking for the same student. Then at the same time, it should ask for the required skills. That means what was intended in the POs. So what is happening these days? As I said, the assessment part is the most casual thing we are taking. Even the external question papers, they have to fall in. They have to fall in line and start studying the questions as per my requirement, as per the university requirements, as per the requirements of the program. Formative assessment is used to chart the learner's progress. That means what is he has learned and what is required to be improved as she works towards achieving the specific outcomes to become competent. So the idea is that he or she should be able to attain that outcome. If I say he should be able to design a part, he should be able to design a part. But the formative assessment will tell me that he is lacking at such and such things. So I will try to strengthen those strengths. I will tell the student that this area is weak. If the student have not met the criteria, they would not be competent yet. That means they have not attained that competency. And the onus would be on the assessor to specify what learners have to do in order to meet the criteria and become competent. That means the assessor, I as a teacher, am the assessor. I will tell the student that, okay, this is the thing missing. I cannot say tell them that you are failed and you go back. No. I say, okay, this was the level required. You have come to, I wanted at level 10 and you have come to level 7. But I want that you should come to level 10 and you do such more things so that you are able to perform at level 10. Summative assessment is formal assessment that is administered at the end of the learning program. That means it is end semester examination. Judgments are made with reference to the criteria set for the assessment tasks. Very clear. It is the attainment of the task, the attainment of the PO, program outcome. Outcome-based assessment is connected with the issues of reliability and fairness. Somebody talking about this. Traditionally, reliability refers to consistency of measurement. Whether I do the assessment or you do the assessment, the results will be same. The evaluation plan should be such that even if 3-4% do it independently, the results should be same. It should be a reliable assessment plan. Outcome-based assessment is conducive to reliability in that specific outcomes and criteria are the basis upon which the assessment is planned and administered. You see, in assessment outcome-based education, you define what the student will be able to do as a course outcome or as a program outcome. So when the assessor knows, the student knows, so they have to match. Whether I do the assessment or you do the assessment or third person does the assessment, the result should be same. If the student knows, he'll be, that means he has reached that level. If the student doesn't know, he has not reached that level. These are constant regardless to who is assessing and who is being assessed. Laying down these specifications makes it necessary for the assessor to use them as a guide in planning, developing, and administrating assessment. Because the POs or the outcomes are specific, known and clearly understood by the all, they act as an inbuilt mechanism against assessor inconsistency and assist with the transparency of assessment and description of standards. What does this mean? Because the student also knows against what he will be assessed. The assessor also knows. The examiner also knows. So there is very unlikely that there will be inconsistency, and the results are likely to be consistent. If a student is been certified that he knows how to do motor winding, that means he knows it, right? It says outcome-based assessment procedures are valid. Valid means they will test, they will assess what was supposed to be assessed. So assessment method and criteria have to match what is to be assessed, right? You cannot be asking vague questions. It should be very clear what you want. Whether you want to write a definition or you want the application of that particular thing. Judgments or results showing measurement outside of what is stated are viewed as invalid. When I very important aspect will come in point number, last point we will just study. That means what is not expected. Expected means I don't want that somebody should know that what is the log value of 4. I should be made available the calculator or data about the log value. Judgments or results showing measurement outside of what is stated are viewed as invalid. For example, the use of correct grammar is often used as a criteria which when assessing assignments. You see, that happens with me, that happens with you also. That the student is not writing correct English. So what you do is, if this criteria was not mentioned, we have not mentioned that you have to write it correctly in English. The idea was that he should be able to define a particular law, Newton's law of motion. Now the student gives the answer, but in English grammar is correct. Otherwise it makes sense. But we never told the student that the English also has marks. This is one example, right? I wanted that you have to design a crankshaft. But I mean, I never said that the weight should be optimal. I wanted a student to write a program for solving a problem. But I never told him that it should be an efficient program. It should be an optimal program. So let him write whatever lengthy program he writes. If I have not asked him that it should be a small program using the advanced techniques, I should not deduct marks. So they should be valid. They should tell, we should be very clear what the student we have asked him to do and what he is doing. It is an integrated assessment, right? The purpose of integrated assessment is to provide evidence that the purpose of course module as a whole has been achieved. I wanted to teach air conditioning. So whatever I wanted to, because I will not get a chance to teach him air conditioning afterward. So whatever I wanted to teach about air conditioning, I have taught him and I have tested him everything what I want. I wanted that he should be able to select an air conditioning system. He should be able to install air conditioning system. He should be able to make a calculation for the heat load. He should be able to maybe maintain the system, plan for the maintenance. So it should be complete. It should be integrated. Whereas when I come to, let's say, diploma level, I may not ask him to design an air conditioning system. At degree level, I want him to design the air conditioning system. It makes use of formative and summative assessment method to enable the learners to demonstrate applied competence. Integrated assessment incorporates foundation as well as practical and reflective competence while attempting to bring the overall purpose of the qualification under scrutiny. Learners should be provided with a variety of contexts in which to display their knowledge, since a standoff once of written examination doesn't provide the assessment skills that are not suited to that sort of assessment. That means we should give a chance to prove himself. Right? You tell him that you design a shaft for such and such load on paper. He is not able to do it, but you make him sit on the computer, give an alternative. Right? So that he can prove that he knows it, but probably he is not able to express it. Now, how do you implement the outcome-based assessment principles? You have to start somewhere, right? You say focus on one of the courses, your course. Let's forget about the module, which you currently teach, and ask this question to yourself. What are the specific outcomes which I expect students to demonstrate upon completion of this course? That means what are the course outcomes which I want the students to be able to attain after going through this course. Before planning assessment strategies, set specific outcomes for the course. Outcomes will come from the above line. An outcome being a result of learning occurs after or at the end of the learning experience. When I say he should be able to select an AC for a particular environment, that he should be able to do after I have taught the subject to him, total subject. Outcomes require the ability to translate and apply the intellectual and psychomotor process aspects of learning into tangible form. You have studied many things. I have studied that there is something called centrifugal force, right? But when somebody applied it in a washing machine or a dryer, then I knew that this is when we apply. That somebody has been able to translate that aspect of centrifugal force into a useful product. Pertinent vocabulary to be used in stating outcome includes, that means when you write the outcome, somebody will teach you this, as I said, Bloom's taxonomy. They will tell you what are the verbs which are required to be written while assessing. Write, describe, define, analyze, explain, construct, organize, apply, evaluate. These verbs cover a wide spectrum of complexity, so it is important to appreciate the level of demand you are placing on the students and be accurate in your choice of language and design of assessment tasks. One is define. You can define. Second will be explain. There is a difference. What you are expecting from the student. I worked as principal of engineering college. I used to analyze the question paper. First of all, what you should do is, what is the answer I expect from this? How much weightage I am giving to this question? Only then you can justify in correcting the students' responses. So we have to see what is the right word. Instead of only writing define, what, where, you have to use meaningful verbs while writing the question. In addition to setting specific outcomes for a course, it is required that generic or critical outcomes be embedded in all curricula. General or critical means, let's say there's a communication skill. Now, I am not interested in teaching communication skill to the students. What I want, that he should be able to give a seminar in each subject. Then my communication skills will improve. He should be able to work as a team leader. Okay, I'm convinced. It is important to plan and document how over the course of their whole degree, students will realize that life skills. These are life skills actually. Identify and solve problems. How will they do it? Unless we give them the problem. Work in team. Now I cannot have a subject where I can teach them how to work in team. And even if I teach them how to work in teams, it is not going to help. Unless I give them exercises where the students are made to work in teams as a team leader as well as team member. Organize and manage self. Collect, analyze, and evaluate information. Communicate effectively. Use science and technology. Recognize problem-solving context. What is the context? And what is the application? Where I want to use this? It may be useful to ask the following question in relation to your current practices before attempting to implement outcome-based assessment plan. You see, now you are doing it in non-outcome-based education system. When you have made an assessment plan, ask this question: have you set specific outcomes for your course? Of course, in outcome-based education, you must have set it. But just see, because you have to evaluate the student against the predefined outcomes. Do your current assessment procedure actually assess the specific outcomes set for your course? Now also you are doing it. Does it assess the assessment, that is outcomes? If no, what are the lapses? What are the gaps? Does the assessment for this course module guide students toward achieving the outcomes? I am making the assessment plan. I am making the questions. Does it take the student towards learning the outcomes? You see, outcome says he should be able to design a solution for a given problem. Now it is a vague question. Outcome is very wide, but what all is required to make the students to learn or to reach this level? So that has to be incrementally built. We have to see how to do that. Is your assessment varied and frequent? Is it not like we are doing that every time we are repeating the question and we have set frequencies? No, sometimes there should be surprise tests also. Sometimes you have a quiz. Sometimes you have multiple choice questions like that. Are your students getting enough feedback? Are you doing that? That after assessing the students, you have to take the feedback. And many places I have seen is people do take feedback, but There is no analysis of the feedback. There is no action taken on the feedback. Students may be doing that, we don't understand this, but you have to analyze it. There's a beautiful example given in NBA SAR, self-assessment report, that in some case, in electronics, there is a subject on microwave theory. They analyze that the students are not understanding, they are not performing in the microwave theory subject. On analysis, what they found that the microwave theory is not a problem with them. But the subject, because there's a lot of mathematics in this subject, the students are not understanding the mathematical part of it. So what the college did, they strengthened the teaching of the mathematics and the results started coming. So that happened only because they collected feedback. Feedback was sincere, unbiased, and the feedback got analyzed and action taken. So what is happening is students, the faculty is not taking feedback. If they are taking feedback, they are not analyzing it because they say, well, wait, this is wastage of time. It is not. If you are taking paper pencil feedback, shift it to computerized. It will analyze automatically and tell you the results also. Traditional assessment methods such as assignment, multiple choice exams may still be appropriate to assess some of the outcomes which students need to demonstrate. These methods are broad enough and cater sufficiently for the range of outcomes and the diverse learning styles strength of the student. That means you can continue with this. You can have more methods also. You can go for computerized testing also so that you don't have to mark all the answer sheets. Explore ways of modifying, expanding your current assessment plan procedures so that they are more aligned with the outcomes set for your course. Are there changes you could make in relation to how you phrase questions used in essays, text exams, which would make instruction more explicit in terms of what you require students to do? Use the proper verbs. Bloom's theory says use the proper verbs, and that should be very complete, very clear what you want the students to do, what you want the student to write. Are there alternative methods of assessment that you could make use of which more accurately reflect the specific outcomes set for a course? Can we change? Can I have a, instead of a essay type, descriptive type test to objective type test, so that more clarity comes to the students? Can I take them from the theory test, written test to practical class? Everybody reads, let's say, in all branches, you have, let's say, some programming subject, C programming subject, and we are giving them a theory exam also. My suggestion is do away with the theory exam in that subject. There should be no theory classes also. They should be taken to the lab class only. Give them a small lecture, half an hour lecture. After that, they should work on the computers. Give them problems. That may learn in better learning outcomes. In terms of an outcome-based approach towards assessment, the most important thing to bear in mind is that the assessment criteria are developed in relation to the outcome set for the course. We are writing COs for each course. So all these assessment criteria, all the outcomes, all the questions you are writing, that will be in writing toward that in attaining the course outcomes. If I want my students to write a program for a simple program, a simple problem, I have to do that. If I want the students to write for the C program for a complex engineering problem, I should be able to know what is a complex engineering problem, and accordingly I give them. There is nothing like that. I will not allow them to use a book. Let them use a book. Why do you want to have rote learning so that they can remember and reproduce? No, they should be application based. There are different ways that educators go about setting criteria, but at the very least, criteria should be communicated explicitly to the students. Whenever you are writing the COs, the students should know that I will be tested on these COs. In the interest of transparency, fairness, and student motivation, criteria should ideally be negotiated with the students. It says that what type of questions will come, that also you should discuss with the students. What are the attainment goals? It is what are the attainment levels? It will need mature students and mature teachers. The following question may assist you in evaluating the process of setting criteria. What are the learning outcomes for this component? What criteria do learners have to meet, and what evidence of their achievement do they need to apply to be proficient, competent? Are these criteria made known to the learners in advance? I think I'm not repeating that. What opportunity do you give learners to assess their progress in situations where you are able to inform them of their weaknesses and guide them towards improved achievement? That means you have tested the students against a particular criteria, and the student has not come to that level. What is it you are doing? Sometimes what we say that we are taking extra classes for the weak students. You can plan. At the same time, I tell the student that, okay, I don't want to ask you what the commands to be used to do it. Try figure in the AutoCAD. You sit on the system and draw it. I'm happy if you can do that. Are the criteria capable of distinguishing clearly between the learner who is not yet competent and the learner who is able to demonstrate sufficient mastery? How do you do that? The criteria has to be very good so that, you see, in the present system also, the whole aim of marking system is that we want to distinguish, we want to differentiate the students, that these are the good students, these are the not so good students, these are the bad students. But in skill testing also, in outcome based testing also, you need to have a criteria which can differentiate between mastery to the not so good students, so that I can take the good student to the next level. For that, you can use rubrics. Rubrics will be discussed in your program. A criteria-based marking plan is a detailed matrix specifying that is required for the completion of the task. Detailed description are given of the various aspects of a task which are considered relevant. These are further defined in terms of what need to be included if the tasks are completed at a highly competent, less than competent level. That means you want to still grade the student that he's good, he's very good, he's excellent. So what do you expect the students to do? I want them to write a program. But if somebody writes a long program without using the advanced techniques, okay, he can do the job, but he is not very competent. He is at a lower level of competence. But if, as I said, if somebody writes very good program, which is an optimized program, using all complicated aspects, then he is highly competent, he has developed the competency. The purpose of constructing a criteria reference marking guide is to be explicit with the students as to the requirements of the task. That means we want to be very clear to the student that you have to be able to do this task. Clearly setting up such a guide also has implication for intra as well as inter-marker reliability. That means if you have very clear terms, if you have a very clear marking plan, it guides the evaluator also. Therefore, that the results are valid. Now, if you want to, you see, the criteria referenced marking guide, marking plan has to come sooner or later. Once we are talking about what we call as outcome-based education, even in new education policy, there's a lot of stress on outcome-based learning. So there are some steps I have taken from the internet only. It says, begin with one of the subjects. State your specific and generic outcomes for the course. Course outcomes you state, but embed some generic outcomes also that you should be able to write, you should be able to present, right? Then only you can point out your English weaknesses. Design, select your assessment task. The assessor must ensure that the selected tasks align with the specific outcome criteria statement of the. That means whatever your task is, that is CO, is basically it should contribute to the program outcomes also. It is important to analyze the task in terms of different components. That means knowledge, skill, attitude. One needs to specify out exactly what is required by a task. You should be very clear. I asked one of the teachers once that he had set up a question paper. I asked him that you come with the question paper. It was a assessment test. I said, what do you expect the students to write against this question? He says, sir, I have not thought about it. So please don't do it. Okay. For example, a task may include asking a student to define certain concepts. Following that, they may be expected to discuss and critically evaluate these. That means you can say that, okay, first define some concepts, discuss them, salient features of each, and compare and contrast them. It is very clear that he has to do three things. First is give the definition, then give salient points for each, then compare each, all these, one, two, three, whatever aspects you have. Set criteria statements. Criteria statements are statements of evidence required to show that the learner is capable of achieving intended outcomes. When do you say that the outcome has been achieved? When converting outcomes into criteria statements, the question would be asked, how will I know a student has achieved the outcome? That means that is my expert, that is the expectation from the teacher. How will you say that the student has learned to write a good C program? Assessment criteria must be clearly aligned with course outcomes, which in turn should be associated with the different components of the task. We have defined the program outcomes in the starting of the program or when the student entered it. So whatever you are doing, whatever you are teaching, whatever you are testing, whatever the students are doing, that has to be directed towards the attainment of the program outcomes or the course outcome, then program outcomes. Take each section and identify the aspects of the categories you require evidence to be produced. Take each category and describe what you expect a highly competent. You see, there will be students who are highly competent, who are not so competent, who are very, very low in competence level. So we have to define what is expected of the students. You can have the rubrics for this. When describing a highly competent candidate, one should include a complete and detailed description of what would need to be demonstrated if a specific outcome being assessed is for the course has been met. When will you say? In addition to including a detailed outline of the appropriate content, the description should include exactly what the candidate is required to demonstrate. Is a detailed outline sufficient for an answer to be highly competent, or should the candidate answer include a critical analysis of the content? That we have to see. That we have to see how much weightage we are giving to that question. Then we have written the requirements for a highly competent student to do that. he can write a part program, he can write a C program using all the modern techniques, highly sophisticated method. So he's a highly competent person. But when you come to the competent candidate, bare minimum, what does a candidate need to demonstrate to meet the fundamental requirements of the task? So you can dilute this. You can have a lower level. He was the highly competent person was at level 5, but a competent student is maybe at level 4. One may ask what distinguishes a highly competent candidate from a competent candidate and omit these aspects which are included in the highly competent category. A competent candidate, you need to demonstrate the outcomes required by a task are met in contrast to the highly competent candidates who would have exceeded this criteria. And not yet competent here, not regarded as rigid but steps. This criteria reference marking plan should clearly outline the aspects of the task which have been omitted or are inadequately dealt with. The above stated should not be regarded as rigid steps, but rather as a process which has been found helpful in some as by some as they engage in the construction of the criteria. You see, when we have to define not yet competent means that means if he is not able to do, he is not able to do such and such things, he is not at the minimum level even, then we say okay, he is not yet competent, but at the same time, we should be able to identify what else he should do. We have defined the criteria for a highly competent, then competent. That means if he is not meeting the competent level, he has to work more, and the instructor, the teacher has to identify this. Okay, there's one more slide I want to put. This you can read. What is the formative evaluation? It draws more level inference about his students than an external assessor. Well, formative is continuous assessment. That means, you see, external assessor may not be having that stake in your students, but you have. Identify the level of cognitive processes of students. What is the level of the cognitive level of the students? Choose the most suitable teaching techniques and materials. Determine the feasibility of a program within the classroom setting. That means whether this program is feasible or you want to make some changes. Determine areas needing a modification. Determine to a great extent the outcomes of summative evaluation. That means, is it effective summative evaluation or you want to do something more? What is the level of students they have achieved? What are the strong points of the student? And what are the weak points of the students? What are the strong points of his teaching? And what are his weak points where he needs to improve? So I can have questions if you want. Any questions you want to have? Yes, please. Any questions? Hello. So if there are no questions, we'll stop the session. If there are questions, I'm sitting, I'm waiting for your questions. You can write in the chat box.
Dear participants, if you have any queries or any question, kindly ask or you just put a message in your chat box. Any question, please?
Okay, if there are no questions, I
Okay,
will
Professor.
break. And thank you very much. Thank you once again for inviting me to be a part of this program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of my college, I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our chief guest, Dr. PS Babla, who spared time from his busiest schedule to grace the occasion. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, Professor, and this will surely be going to encourage students in their future events. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path. My gratitude to the speaker for gracing the occasion. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Leaving this session now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.